Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're joined by so many fellow Coloradans because the increase in rates, particularly around your gas bills, but also around electricity, it really hits everybody. So we could ask any of you to join us. We're all paying the bills, but we have kind of a cross-section of different folks to talk about how that impacts them. We're joined by Colorado Energy Office Director Will Torr, Department of Regulatory Agencies Director Patty Salazar. That's where the Public Utilities Commission is housed, in the Department of Regulatory Agencies. So the staff that works there, and we have a number of directives around how we can lower our utility bills for Coloradans. Many of them are in those agencies. We're also joined by Leona Zarate, Colin Wang, Jill Egbertson, and Simone Renee. Four folks, like so many Coloradans, who have had to struggle to pay higher utility bills these last few months. So we all know a bit about what's happening due to international conflict, extreme weather. Home heating costs have skyrocketed for Coloradans, and of course it costs across the country. Colorado, from the last reporting period, still has a lower than average natural gas costs. There were 30 states that had more expensive natural gas. We have lower than average electricity costs, but that's really little consolation when people have had hundreds of dollars of increases in their bills across the entire country, including here in Colorado, almost entirely because of the spike in natural gas costs, which is transferred directly, of course, for home heating and natural gas, but also is part of why electricity costs have gone up, because natural gas is one of the sources that we use for power generation for electricity. So we really focus on both of those. Natural gas is a globally traded commodity. The market sets the price, but there's a lot we can do to make ourselves more immune to that in the future and provide relief now and save people money. And we are going to be very aggressive in our approach to lowering costs, really taking every possible action that we can at the state level, calling on the Public Utilities Commission to do the same, calling on our utility partners to take very specific actions as well. Colorado has several different kinds of utilities. As you know, we have municipal utilities, we have investor-owned utilities, and we have co-ops. So it's a landscape depending on where you are, where you live, different kinds of utilities, but a lot of the recommendations and actions we're taking really impact all of those to different degrees. The most directly regulated by the Public Utilities Commission are, of course, the investor-owned utilities. I'm directing the Public Utilities Commission to improve long-term price stability and reduce customer exposure to price spikes. And that includes holding utilities more accountable to ratepayers. For more immediate relief, I'm requesting the PUC elevate frontline resources. That includes programs like Low Income Energy Assistance Program, LEAP, Utility Percentage of Income Payment Plans, PIP, many other forms of state and local assistance, and directing the Colorado Energy Office to work with the utilities to identify those most vulnerable and prioritize additional outreach and resources to folks who are disproportionately affected by the increased prices. We're also looking forward to reducing costs through better access to energy efficient upgrades, and that includes everything from home appliances to weatherization. I'm directing the Colorado Energy Office to expedite the creation of the federally funded Whole Home Energy Retrofit Program, which will help more Coloradans save money on their utility bills. I'm also urging the leadership at Colorado's energy utilities to support regulatory changes and relief to reduce consumers' exposure to high gas prices, and of course working to drive the transition to lower cost renewable energy that is not subject to these kinds of price spikes from external factors. Those are just a few of the nearly over 30 detailed recommendations and directions across several different agencies that we are taking to save Coloradans money. Of course, the long-term solution is to continue driving towards 100% low-cost renewable energy, ending our reliance on costly fossil fuels that also make us vulnerable to price increases when they cost a lot more. And that's how we can end our reliance on fossil fuels, improve energy security, reduce rates for ratepayers. It's simple math. Wind generation is priced at about 1.8 cents per kilowatt hour. New solar energy with storage is priced out at about 3 cents per kilowatt hour, and natural gas cost generation range from 4 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour. In the last month or two, closer to that 7-cent piece rate. Now natural gas costs have come back a little bit. You'll see soon see the savings from that, but it's still around 4 cents a kilowatt hour, really twice the cost of wind energy, 50% more than solar energy with storage. So the sooner we can rely on lower cost renewable energy, the sooner that ratepayers will see the dividend, the green dividend from that. We have the tools we need to protect Coloradans and reduce costs, and it's time to act. We're going to be moving full speed ahead with regard to these measures, and we want to make sure that all utilities continue to be increasingly accountable to ratepayers, and that we want to work with all of our energy providers and the state and the federal government to provide relief and reduce rates for both gas bills and electric bills as quickly as possible and in as an enduring way as possible, meaning for years. A lot of these actions are designed to have an impact on preventing the kind of price spikes next winter season that we had this winter season. As I indicated, natural gas prices are back down. You will see decreases in the next month or two, but we need to be ready for whatever comes our way, whether it's a storm in Texas, whether it's additional global conflict. We need that energy security that low-cost, reliable, renewable energy can bring, and we're really aligning all of the resources we can to make that happen. With that, I'm happy to introduce the Colorado Energy Office Director, Will Torr.
Thank you, Governor. We at the Colorado Energy Office recognize the hardship that increased natural gas costs has imposed on all Coloradans. Understanding this burden, we welcome these directives and looking forward to continuing our work to address this issue. At the forefront of our efforts, we'll be rolling out new and expanded energy efficiency programs that can play a big role in reducing costs by limiting wasted energy. Study after study shows that so much energy goes unused through leaks and other inefficient heating and cooling, and this must be addressed. The largest new programs will be the Whole Home Energy Retrofit Program and the High Efficiency Electric Appliance Rebate Program. It will be funded through $140 million of federal funds from the Inflation Reduction Act. While the federal funding for these programs won't be available till the end of the year, we're committed to working with stakeholders to be ready to go as soon as those funds are available and getting them into people's pockets. In addition, we'll be ensuring the implementation of the state's building performance standard, which will lock in big cost savings. Through rulemaking that's just getting underway, every dollar invested by building owners through this program will provide $3 in utility bill savings for the 8,000 plus Colorado buildings that are larger than 50,000 square feet. These will help consumers because many of the structures covered by this program include multifamily housing. We'll also be focusing on establishing new statewide building energy codes and providing technical assistance to local governments adopting the codes in collaboration with the Department of Local Affairs, which will play an important role in ensuring that new homes are constructed to be energy efficient and have much lower utility costs. We'll continue to work with the Public Utilities Commission and Colorado Utilities to identify the customers most vulnerable to gas price increases and prioritize outreach to them and getting these programs to them. We'll do this by providing tools and resources for all Coloradans to understand utility, state, and federal incentives, rebates, tax credits, loans, and other available funds. We'll also coordinate with the Colorado Clean Energy Fund, the Neighborhood Energy Improvement District, and utilities to combine rebate and incentive programs with low-cost financing, such as on-bill financing, to minimize upfront costs of these investments for residents and businesses. And along with taking immediate action, we'll continue to work for long-term solutions to satisfy our energy needs in a way that both addresses our bold energy transition goals and protects pocketbooks. In part, this means pursuing a broad suite of renewable energy options and embracing innovative approaches to reaching that goal. To that end, this session will push for legislation for geothermal energy, which will cut prices for consumers over time, and we'll begin implementing microgrid programs with state and federal funding to provide cost-saving and resilience benefits across the state. We look forward to this challenge. With that, I will pass it back to the Governor.
Thank you. With these actions, we really want to take every possible thing we can do to reduce rates, both immediately, medium term, and long term. To speak about the impact that these rates have had, we have a number of Coloradans who are experiencing this firsthand to share their stories. First, I'd like to introduce Reina Zarate. Reina va a hablar en español, y yo voy a traducir. I will translate Reina's remarks after she speaks. I do have a cheat sheet. And with that, quiero prestar a ustedes Reina Zarate.
Hola, mi nombre es Reina Zarate. Estoy aquí hoy como esposa y como madre de 2 hijos, cuyas facturas de servicios públicos casi se ha duplicado en los últimos 2 meses. Antes pagué $200. En estos días pago 450. Esto impacta mi vida y la vida de mi familia de grandes maneras.
My name is Reina Zarate. I'm here today as a wife and mother of 2 children whose utility bill has nearly doubled over the past couple of months. Before, I paid $200. These days, I pay $450, and it's impacting my life and my family's life in many ways.
Mi hijo actualmente va a la Universidad Estatal de Metro y aumentó este impacto, mi capacidad de apoyarlos. A través de la escuela, todos sabemos que la universidad es cara y que ahora se ha vuelto aún más difícil a pagar. Mi hija tiene 18 años y está solicitando escuelas. Este aumento de proyecto de ley está impactando de mi capacidad para ayudar a pagar las tarifas de solicitud de mis hijos.
My son currently goes to Metro State University, and this bill is making it harder for me to support him through school. We all know that college is very expensive, and now it's becoming even harder to pay for. My daughter is 18 years old and applying to schools. This bill is impacting my ability to help her pay for the fees.
Tengo un trabajo de tiempo completo como navegadora comunitaria y mi esposo también trabaja duro. Tiene su negocio de pintura para mantener a nuestras familias y solamente pasar los sábados a las montañas, pero debido a que las facturas de energía de nuestras familias casi se ha duplicado, tiene que trabajar el sábado y es tiempo que pasábamos juntos entre familias y ahora el costo, ahora ya no podemos hacerlo.
I have a full-time job as a community navigator. My husband has a painting business to support our family. We used to spend Saturdays going to the mountains, but because our energy bill has nearly doubled, my husband now has to work Saturdays, and we are no longer able to enjoy our Saturdays in the mountains.
Sé que no soy la excepción. Muchos de mis amigos, familiares, están teniendo el mismo problema. Donde quiera que voy, la gente está hablando de alto costo de la factura de las utilidades. Le agradezco al gobernador por su compromiso de encontrar solución. Los residentes de Colorado, como yo, apreciaremos bastante su apoyo.
I know I'm not the exception. Many of my friends and family members are having the same issue. Everywhere I go, people are talking about the high cost of their utility bill. I thank the governor for his commitment to addressing this issue. Spanish-speaking Coloradans like myself appreciate the support. Gracias, Reina, para dar su historia a todo Colorado. Y próximo, next I will introduce Colin Wong, who is a student at University of Colorado. Colin?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Colin Wong, and I am from Westminster, and I am a student from the University of Colorado. Last year, my energy bill was around $60 per month. My latest bill is around $100. That is a $40 increase. While that doesn't seem like much, and I've heard stories of people's bills tripling, to a college student, $40 is our groceries, it's our internet, and it's our textbooks. In fact, I had to wait to buy some of my textbooks this semester simply because my energy bill was too high. And on top of this, the cost of living in general is going up. Many of my friends have felt those costs and feel that rising costs driven by inflation is increasingly making it difficult for us to pursue our education and therefore better our lives. The fact is, it's hard to study when for exams when we are worried about having our power shut off. I'm glad of the work that's being done to lower those costs, and I want to thank the governor and state leaders for their efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin, for sharing that. We're now joined by Jill Egbertson. Jill?
Hello, everyone. My name is Jill Egbertson, and I'm glad to be speaking with all of you today. I'm a mother of two 11 and 13-year-old boys, and we have lived in Arvada for 8 years. Over the past year, my bill has gone up almost 30%. That is $100 more than last year. In December of 2021, my bill was $271. This December's bill was $372. And to put that into even more perspective, I paid $171 for my October energy use, and in November it jumped to $354. Then in December I paid $372. That's a $200 increase in just 3 months. Now I know November and December are colder months than October, but that is a staggering increase. This is having a huge impact on my family, even as someone who works in accounting and is very, very careful about my budget. These bills have forced me to cut back on a lot of things. We're eating out less, and I'm having to cut back on sports activities for my kids. Even more, I've been very careful about my energy usage. Last year, I maintained a thermostat of 69 degrees during the day and 66 at night, whereas this year I kept the home at 69 during the day and 62 at night. Thanks to down comforters and trying to actively heat off another bill of almost $400 after I received the first one. This year, I also had the home set to 55 degrees for 10 days when I was out of town. Otherwise, I would estimate that my utility bill would have been nearly $500. Despite all of this, I'm scared to death that my next energy bill for January usage is still going to end up at $500. In addition, I searched out alternative energy such as solar panels, and then I found out that it takes months to find out if we can even get on the energy grid. Then after solar panel installation, it can take another 45 days or more in order to get permission to operate those solar panels. So it's a 5 to 6 month process, even when you're trying to make a change to renewable energy. This is why taking action is so important, and I know that addressing this is part of Governor Polis's efforts, and he is working to expedite this process. I am grateful for that work, and I want to thank Governor Polis and our state leaders for their efforts to help provide relief. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jill. Our final speaker today is Simone Renee. Simone?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Governor. My name is Simone Renee. I'm a resident of the city of Aurora, a mom of 3 beautiful children, a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old son who's here with me today. Rising energy bills have impacted my family as a single mother. I felt the pressure of these bills increasingly each month. I work full-time at a local nonprofit, but despite that, I'm still struggling to keep up. Every month, I am faced with the choice of what I can pay given the increased cost of living and cost of energy. I'm doing the best that I can, but the reality is that it's becoming harder and harder to keep up. It's hard to plan and budget when bills keep changing. This past October, just 4 months ago, I paid $166.15 for my energy bill. This month, the bill came in at $378.18 for January 12th. That's a more than $200 difference, similar to others. How can families plan ahead, budget, when you don't know what the cost of your next bill will be? There's changes from $50 to $100 to $200 per month. Makes it super hard to plan. For a mom like me, these increased costs and high cost of living mean the difference between keeping my 4-year-old in preschool and keeping the lights on. Those are the types of choices that no one should be forced to make. As a matter of fact, I've had to remove my son from preschool in the last few months, trying to juggle these bills. Not to mention having to juggle the costs related to activities of my older children, like sports. These activities come with equipment and uniform costs and other activity fees. I want to ensure that my children have those opportunities, so I work to balance those costs. But again, it's super difficult to plan when you're unable to know if your bills are going to remain the same or increase drastically. I know that I'm not alone. Just like me, there are many families being forced to make similar choices, and this must stop. Though I work full-time and I've been fortunate to get a raise in the last year, it's not enough to keep up with the rising cost of energy. I want to thank Governor Polis and other state leaders for their actions in helping lower the cost and provide relief, but the time for action is now.
Thank you, Simone. And what you're hearing from folks really across our state is, your utility and your energy bills are basically fixed costs. Can you impact them a little bit by setting your thermostat down? You can, but not a lot. We're all impacted, and incomes have not gone up as much as the cost of heating and the cost of electricity has. And that's why we're taking these actions now to make sure we align the state effort towards reducing rates and saving people money. Natural gas prices are already on their way down. People will see some immediate short-term relief in next month's bill, but we need to think a lot deeper than that. We need to prevent Colorado ratepayers, all customers, all of us, from being vulnerable to these enormous price swings in these global commodities, particularly as it impacts natural gas, which so many Coloradans use for heating and is also a part of providing power on our electricity grid. I want to thank all of our speakers for joining us. I'm also joined by Patty Salazar from from DORA, Will Tor from Energy Office. They'll be happy to answer questions alongside me as we get into their respective areas. And they are also recipients of the letter, including directions from the governor. And with that, happy to open it up for questions. Maria, will you call on the questioners? Connor?
En español, gobernador, ¿cuándo van a ver un cambio real en el precio de las facturas? Porque
Sí.
han pagado mucho, 200, 300 dólares.
Sí. Pues el próximo mes las utilidades van a costar menos porque ya bajaron el precio de natural gas. Pero necesitamos mejorar nuestro sistema para proteger a la comunidad, todos los clientes, de poder contra costos altos en la futura también.
Hi, thank you. Governor, there are some people who might say, and who do say, that you could have helped cushion this blow with these price hikes, given what's going on with the drilling here in Colorado, that we could have been doing more. I know that there are more permits that are going out, but I just wonder if you have any regrets with not doing more here at home.
Well, there's no connection there. As you indicated, there are more permits, but the price of natural gas it's a global commodity. So Colorado is a producer, but we are not a producer that our policies drive global pricing. The reason global pricing increased, the biggest single reason is the war in Ukraine and Europe. Secondary reasons include cold snaps and increased demand. So certainly, Colorado and our production industry is a small part of the overall quantity side. But, Colorado's policies with regard to, if granting more permits worked, we wouldn't have had this price spike because we actually granted more permits. But clearly, that did not impact the price of natural gas. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So then with renewable energy or with other things like solar panels, we heard this family talk about how they're looking into that. With that 6-month delay or more that we've been reporting on, I wonder what your thoughts are on that, as families are also looking for alternatives.
Yes, part of what we're calling on is to expedite that process, as well as reducing financing costs with on-bill rebates or tariffs. They're often rebates because they're actually net savings. So if you sign up for solar, you might get a dividend on your monthly rate. But certainly reducing the time is a key aspect of that. It should not take anyone 6 months to have to go through red tape to get solar on their home. They should be able to move much quicker to begin saving money sooner.
Sam Brush. Yeah, Governor, one thing I haven't heard you talk about is base rates. The PUC has continually approved base rate increase. Those aren't the commodity price increases you're talking about, but these are to cover the capital projects that they've approved, plus a profit for the ratepayers. Is it time for the PUC to stop approving new base rate increases?
Well, I think that certainly in interviewing and evaluating potential PUC appointees, I wanted to make sure we would have independent thinkers who would push back against rate increases. The truth is, Renewable energy is lower cost. The sooner we can move off of high-cost coal energy and high-cost and volatile natural gas energy, the sooner we can pass these savings along to consumers. There are utilities like Tri-State powering the co-ops that have had no increases in their electricity rates this year or last year. And we need to make sure that we have a PUC that will support consumers in pushing back against unnecessary capital costs that also include profit margins for the investor-owned utilities.
Judy?
Governor, you talk about the PUC holding utilities more accountable. Do they have that authority now, or are there things in statutes that should be changed to give them more authority?
They have the authority they need with regard to investor-owned utilities. They don't have nearly as much authority with co-ops and municipal utilities. But these directions are towards all of the utilities in Colorado, regardless of what their form, both the co-ops, the municipals, the investor-owned. Their business is very similar and nearly the same, no matter what they're how they're structured from an ownership perspective. We want to make sure that the state is able to remove barriers to low-cost renewable energy and support people who are choosing to engage in that transition for home and for storage at the home level with lower-cost financing.
Let's see then, Marshall. Governor, obviously people knew that the natural gas rates were going to go up. We've known that for months in advance. So why are you acting kind of ex post facto, right? Like the rates are already up. And then also recently, how fast can people expect some of these orders to have effect? I know Mr. Tor talked about a year for some of these rebates, several months for some of these other programs.
So electricity rates and natural gas rates are expected to come down in the next few months. We are trying to align the actions we need to take to avoid or reduce future price spikes in time for the next high demand season, which would be next winter. So certainly some of these are on a quicker timeline, but natural gas prices historically increase when demand increases, which is over our cold winters. We need to make sure we take action now to reduce the vulnerability of Coloradans to rate increases in the future, even as we take the immediate actions we can to get additional aid out now.
And then also, all three PUC members now have been appointed by you. Are you disappointed that they approved some of these base rate hikes?
Well, you know, if the PUC is an independent regulatory authority, from time to time we can issue comments on their proceedings through the Energy Office, which we have, particularly with regard to the surcharge, which is still in place, sadly, from the Texas winter storm of 2 years ago. So we have a process for intervening formally. We'll certainly look at that process going forward. If there's ways that we feel we can reduce people's utility bills and prevent additional increases.
Marshall?
I wanted to sneak two questions into one, but if I can just quickly follow up on base rates and then ask my quicker
Sure.
question. Excel told me when it comes to what customers pay, it's fuel, natural gas, labor, equipment, and maintenance. But as we saw, as I learned last week, we're also paying, as part of the base rate, the lawyer's fees for Excel or energy companies to argue why they need a rate increase. Customers paid them back for that work. Did you know that that's part of what we pay? And are you okay with the PUC saying that's an okay thing to pass on to ratepayers?
No, I don't think that expenses like advertising or fighting against consumer protections or lobbying should be included in base rates that ratepayers are forced to pay. And we'd be happy to look at how we can avoid that from occurring, whether that's through action at the PUC or if it necessitates legislation.
The short question, one of your bullet points, is incentivizing utilities to reduce customer costs. How do you incentivize a utility that's not hurting?
So very simply what we mean with that one is not only should utilities not make more money simply because they're charging more, and to be clear, many of these natural gas costs are pass-throughs, meaning the utilities are not necessarily making more money. What we're trying to find out as a way is how do you make less money or less profit when you are passing cost increases along. The flip side of that, of course, is that yes, you have the potential for more profit. We're not against profit if you were able to save ratepayers money and reduce costs. So we want to create a structure, an incentive structure, where this is primarily our investor-owned utilities. They do have the opportunity to do better and increase profits. How do they do that? by reducing rates, and then perhaps they get to retain a percentage of those rate reductions as an incentive. But on the flip side of that is, how are they then penalized if they fail to prevent and protect ratepayers from increases?
Gabby, you have a question or anything? Just want to give you a chance. Okay. Kate?
With regard to the Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate, it seems that office goes ignored by the Public Utilities Commission. Has there been any thought to giving that office more strength?
Well, so the Public Utilities Commission is independent. I don't question their independence. The governor can intervene, as I have, especially with regard to trying, with very limited success. We got some success in avoiding the surcharges from the winter storms. I thought the utilities should have eaten a bigger part of that. Also, the office can and does routinely issue their own opinions with regard to the PUC. So I certainly would encourage the PUC to listen both to what the consumer advocate says and to thoughtful input from the governors, as well as from ratepayers like those we heard today who are directly impacted by rate increases.
Sam? Just one question on natural gas infrastructure. Building new natural gas infrastructure is one way. Excel and other companies make money and profit. And it's also something climate scientists have said needs to stop. Do you think utilities should still be building new natural gas cycles?
So there's been significant action on this issue. Pursuant to legislation from 2021 on the clean heat planning process, the Public Utilities Commission has recently adopted new gas planning rules that for the first time will have a rigorous process at the Public Utilities Commission for reviewing proposals for large capital investments in the natural gas system to determine whether those are appropriate. And as part of that, we'll require them to look at non-pipes alternatives that, for instance, might focus on reducing demand rather than on the large capital investment. So it's a very important issue, and that is one where the PUC has taken significant action.
And I would just say, in my opinion, the last thing we should do is force ratepayers to pay more to make us even more vulnerable to future price spikes in natural gas.
Last question for Alan.
Governor, you mentioned the long term several times, and you also talked about the need to get off fossil fuels. Does this represent an opportunity? Are you saying that you will want Colorado to pick up the pace of decarbonization? And what exactly does that look like?
Well, I think what these price increases, as well as the Texas winter storm, have shown us are vulnerabilities that we Colorado consumers have with factors outside of our control, namely spikes in natural gas costs. And the sooner that we can achieve independence and have reliable low-cost energy that's not subject to storms in Texas or wars in Europe, the better off Coloradans will be. So that's a direction we have been moving in, we are moving in, and we will be moving in to provide long-term relief. Some of these actions also relate to immediate and medium-term relief as well, but the only long-term solution is making sure we're no longer vulnerable to those enormous price spikes in international commodities.
Lucas, quick question. Any idea how much less people's utility bills will be next month?
Well, we have a lot of utility providers in the state, so, but if you look at natural gas prices, they're about half of what they were during their peak a couple months ago. So, I mean, that reflects into a wide variety of things. But I think that natural gas customers will see that coming down, and for different electricity providers, that's part of their mix. Some will see that coming down as well.
Okay, final two questions, Marshall, then Jesse, and then we answer out.
So part of the conversation is about transitioning, and I know Excel, for example, talked, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, about transitioning Comanche to a natural gas storage facility. That's going to cost ratepayers in the end, because every time a company builds something that gets built into the base rate or built into a rider on our bill, which isn't the largest charge, but it's an ongoing charge. Is there anything in what you've laid out here that would prohibit or limit that kind of charging to us?
You want me to look at you, or should I look at one of these cameras? I don't know. I don't know which one's yours. I'll just sort of look over in this general direction. So, again, I am very skeptical of investments in infrastructure that forces rate increases passed along to ratepayers that lead to more reliance rather than less reliance on costly natural gas. Our vulnerability and exposure to natural gas is what has caused these price spikes. So the last thing we should do is force ratepayers to pay more to make us more beholden to potential future swings in the cost of natural gas. Did that answer your question, Marshall? Yep, sort of.
And
Jesse?
Governor, you talked a lot about the long-term and the medium-term steps. What are the short-term steps? I'm not sure if I heard any.
Yeah. Short-term steps include getting out a lot of the benefits that people are eligible for, including a lot of the, let me find my page here and I'll get them. Okay. Short-term steps include getting out a lot of the aid that people are eligible for, low-income energy assistance program, utility percentage of income payment plans. Again, with the increased rates, a lot of folks qualify as a percentage of income that didn't before. Many of them don't know it. We want to get them in. Energy assistance programs, state and local assistance, partnerships with community organizations for bill assistance. Many of these are immediate over the next 12 months, including a comprehensive strategy to reduce energy costs, working with regard to better hedging strategies among the utilities, removing barriers to distributed and home solar, as well as identifying more effective ways of financing at a lower rate, those kinds of improvements with on-bill rebates or on-bill tariffs. So I would say a lot of this work is crystallized through this action today, accelerated. Obviously, the only real solutions long-term are to end our reliance on these fluctuating costs and instead build in low-cost renewable energy. But there are immediate relief steps that we are taking as well that are included in these over 30 actions that are directed to different agencies and at the utilities themselves today. Thank you all very much. Thank you to our speakers for sharing their thoughts. And you speak for many Coloradans. What you're going through is not unique to you. Really, almost every Coloradan is experiencing this in some way. And we want to make sure that we are protected against this kind of thing in the future and providing the relief we can now. Thank you.